everybody, I'm back again. Hopefully this time it won't drop out because we're actually on the right internet. So I'll just go over what I was talking about before. So if you can, which is basically muslin on the back, tissue paper on the front with lots of paint. There's also some Vista and a few glittery bits on that one. This is using up your old cling film, adding in some paint. This will take quite a while to dry. This will take you know, up to a week, maybe longer, depending on where you've got it drying. We want it all wrinkly like this, so you can re-wrinkle it as you go if you want to, which gives it added interest. And then once it's dry, you can stitch into it as well. Excuse me. And this little thing here, if I move that out of the way, you can see it on the white background. This little thing here is made from Angelina and Tyvek. I haven't used the Hot Fix Angelina on this one, I've just used ordinary Angelina. And the Tyvek gives it some interesting form, and then I've used FX to fix it to it, which is quite nice. And then you give it a zap and away it goes. So before the internet went off, we were talking about saving things. So I save tea bags. Once they've been used, I take the tea out of them. You get some really interesting results with them. And you can use different types of tea bags. These are the tea bags that have the flavoured teas in them. So just pull the string off them and open them out. Open them out carefully because you do want to have a nice big piece to be able to work with. So just gently ease it out. Both sides. So you've got a nice long piece there. That would have been some sort of red coloured one, I should imagine. The other thing that I keep are wet wipes. So when I've wiped up my mess, I can then save it. So this will have paint or ink or whatever on. I've got a huge box of these, as you can imagine. So I'm just going to briefly go through this. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a little slurp. Okay, so we're just going to go briefly through these to show you how to do it. So the first thing we'll do is the muslin paper. So piece of muslin, doesn't have to be anything particular. If you've got any of those lovely old-fashioned cheesecloth, shirts, anything like that, out of the charity shop or wherever, you know, give it a go. In here, I have got some PVA glue in here, and I have mixed this half PVA and half water and given it a good shake. It doesn't have to be expensive PVA, it can be any, and I tend to go and raid John's sheds and take the PVA out of there if he's got any, you know, especially if he's been decorating or something like that. So the first thing that we're going to do is soak the muslin paper in the PVA. This isn't a clean brush, it doesn't matter because we're going to put colour on this at some point anyway. Put plenty on, and if you're not going to leave this here to dry, put it onto a piece of cling film or a piece of plastic so you can peel it off. I've got here a piece of plastic, and underneath this I've got a blanket so that it's a nice soft surface to work on, and that's only doing it, whatever grabs me really, you can see. And you do use a lot of PVA. Okay. The consistency should be like single cream really. Make sure everything is well covered, as they say. Okay, so that there is now soaked. This is really old, you know, I've got some of this that I've had for years and years. Screw it up, really screw. I'm trying to work out where the blooming thing is. Really screw this up. That's it. Okay, once you've screwed it up on our piece of muslin, okay, so just stretch it out a bit, press it down, and then go over it again with the glue. And you want wrinkles in it, so encourage the wrinkles. Try not to get any tears if you can help it, but do encourage the wrinkles. So if your piece of tissue paper is going over the edges, bring it back in. Doesn't matter about the muslin, because you might want an end that you want to actually grab a hold of in a minute. Bring it into the edges, that's it. And then really go to town with white like I have. You can add other things too, or you can just leave it as it is. If you've got air bubbles, push them out to the side. We don't want air bubbles in it. Okay. So I am going to add into this, she says when she finds it, one of these. So this is a flower made from rice papers. I'm just going to lay it on there. That's all I'm going to do, just lay it on. And then I'm going to go over it again, very gently this time, because I want the colours to bleed out, but I don't want it to move too much. Do you see how that's... It's sticking down, it's very fragile, but I like how the colours can be moved out from it. Which gives you a bit of extra dimension. So we're deliberately bleeding the paint out of this. I'm not quite sure how they colour these, but I quite like the way it goes. Okay, I'll just give my brush a bit of a clean, because I don't want that purple going anywhere else. And then we can add some paints. So these are acrylic paints that I have here. Which I'm just going to add a small amount onto here, and you do only need a small amount because you can move it about. Now these paints are opaque, so you can move them quite a bit, and then when you put another colour over the top, you'll be able to see both. I'm just going to gently bring that yellow in up here. Which is going to change that purple a fair bit, and then use that purple to come down a tiny bit into the yellows, but not too much. If you've got too much, just take it off. This is the beauty of opaque paints. Okay, and then if you decide you want to add something else to it, I've got some Bister here, which we can just spray on, which can tone the whole thing down if we wanted to. And then I have got some acrylic ink, which I'm also going to spray over, which is going to tone it down even more. And then if I want to add a little bit of sparkle, because don't forget this has all got glue onto it, and you don't need very many, so this is quite dull. So we can just sprinkle some of these on. And because it's glue and paint, they will stick. Last, so that I can move it. do be aware that if you're doing this on a plastic background, as I am, not to actually melt your plastic that's underneath. So keep it moving. I have melted a few, I have to say. Quite a few actually. Luckily I have quite a lot of it. And when you think you've dried it enough so that you can move it, then do so. Which is exactly what we're doing here. So just to give you a closer look, and so that you can see all the sparkle and the movement in it. Okay, and then just leave it to dry. So get it out the way, that's finished and done with. We're now going to get ourselves there we go, and just leave that somewhere to dry. So what I have here is a used piece of cling film. This has been used to go over one of these trays, believe it or not. Out. Okay, so let's get some metallics. Blue, gold and red I think would be quite nice. Don't need too much for something as small as this. Should be about right. Fold it in half. And once you've got it folded in half, carefully move it around. Move the paint around. You can move it in any direction. Allow the paints to mix and allow the wrinkles to come. This is the one time we're allowed to have wrinkles, because it gives us an extra dimension. Give it a little rub and just move it about. Turn it over and check that you're happy with both sides. And then encourage some more wrinkles in. Once this is dried, you can stitch into it. You can add all sorts into this. You can bead it, you can stitch it by hand, or you can run it under your sewing machine. But if you're going to run it under the sewing machine, I would advise that you put some sort of stent. So I would always use an old needle as though I was using it on paper instead of putting a new needle in. Okay, so that's that. So that's that one. So now we have two that we can play with. And if you want to come and have a go at this, this is what we're going to be doing on Experimental Wednesday, the week after, well, next week. That one with that one, and that one over there a bit more, just so that I've got more working room really. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to just quickly go through is this little box here. So this box that I have at the back of me here is my box of dried wet wipes, which we're now going to use. I mean, look at the colours on that. It is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? This one's a little bit more muted. It's a bit more vibrant than it looks on the screen, to be quite honest. And this one too. But they need more, I think. This one, I think, does need pepping up a bit. This one, you may think, might need toning down a bit, but there are large white areas on here as well. And this one is just lovely, of course. So what we can do is with these opaque paints, these paints, this is an opaque fabric paint from Colourcraft, which I really like. You don't have to get the fabric ones, but I tend to. The other thing that I tend to use is System 3. Perhaps it needs a shake. That's it. Just drying my brush off to one side. So what we have here is a small amount of paint, and I'm now just literally going over this. Just to get a bit more colour into it really. But I'm not putting a lot of paint on at all. There's a large yellow area here that I'm just adding some more of this orange to, which seems to be quite a good blend for the rest of it. I'm going to mix a little bit of gold in with it, which will just lift that middle area there. So that piece now is transformed. The white's gone and we've got more orange and more gold in there. Push it through, and if you want to do the other side, you know, pick out some areas on the other side too that you feel might benefit just from a little bit more colour. Then leave them to dry. And of course you can stitch straight into these no matter what you do, by hand or by machine, and again you could always add a stabiliser onto the back of them, so they do make a lovely background. And if you were here with us week before last when Ruth Holmes was here, we used these to do backgrounds, to use as backgrounds for some stitching that she had planned for us. I'm going to add some of this golden orange onto this one as well now, which is lifting it immediately. And if you think your paint's a little bit thick, you can water it down if you want to. You don't have to have it this thick. And then if you feel that you want to add something else to it, oh, a bit more, oh Anita, you put too much on there. Just to move that around a bit because it now looks a bit blobby. So I'm going to move it. And it will move a lot just by adding water onto it. And now that looks a lot better. It's got far more colour in it. And especially from that side, because this, although it doesn't look like it, is actually purple. I'm not quite sure why it looks that funny grey colour on the screen, but it does. So that's a purple one. And then we've got this here, which we can mop up with this one. Sometimes. And then we can just clean the brush off with it. And what can happen, quite a lot, I'll just pick up a few more bits here. You could just be highlighting the creases in here, just by dry brushing over it. And that just gives that just a little bit more lift. Okay, so that's another thing that you can do. Now, if you haven't used, just getting the glue off my fingers, if you haven't used this product before, Fuse FX, it's a web, and it's a web of glue, which looks, when you unpack it, like this, a bit like a gossamer. I'm trying to do this without getting all paint on it. There you are. So it's like a gossamer. Now you can paint this and then you can melt it to stick things to things. So that's what we're going to do now. So I am literally just going to pull a piece off the end. Okay, you just pull it off. I'm going to get this palette and I am going to add some silver to it, I think. No, we won't. Yes, we will. We'll add silver to this palette, like so. And I'm just going to mix them all in, so we'll probably end up with mud. And I'm going to paint this. Now the beauty of this stuff is, even though it's painted, it will still work. Like so. And we can get it to leave the most amazing patterns on things when we're playing. Okay, so that's more to give it a bit of extra colour. If I can get the orange to come out. I don't want a lot, I just want it here and there. That's it. And there we have it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is mould it together with something. So I think we'll have some paper, because don't forget this is a glue. This is rag paper, lovely stuff to work with. If we lay this over, you'll see how that could change that. So these are Angelina Fibers, and this particular one isn't the hot fix one, so it's just literally a fibre. It's man-made, and we can just lay it on here, and then we're going to put our glue over the top. As long as we haven't put too much on, we should get it to bond. But of course, like most things, if you put too much on, it's not going to be able to bond to the surface, is it? But then if you end up with a mistake and it just bonds itself together, you'll still have something else that you can play with. So we'll just move these paints out of the way, because I'm going to have to bring the iron in. Always when doing something like this, baking parchment to keep your iron clean, though I have to say it's too late for this iron. There's no way in this earth it will ever be clean again. One of the tips that you can have with cleaning an iron, of course, is to use a paracetamol. Get that on there. Fold that over. The iron is on very hot, because what we want is for the glue to melt. Even though it's wet, it still should work. You just lay it on there. Let the heat do the work. Oh, and I've just melted the table covering. I did say to be careful about that, and I've done it. Never mind, hey. Let's see what we've got. hot, so do be careful when lifting it off. Wet bit that we can still use. And there you have it. Where are we? And there you have it, liner that's underneath it. And again, you can stitch into it. You can also use these for backgrounds if you're a card maker. You don't have to stitch in these, you can stamp on them. You know, so I'll show you. I'll just hold on a moment. So this is one of my favourite products. It's called Stays On, and I use it quite a lot for things. I always take the, can't see there, can you? I always take the Stays On to the stamp or to whatever it is that I'm using. And if we just do it there. And Stays On comes in many colours, so you don't have to just use black. Get that out of the way. I can get the bit you need to see under the camera. Do you see that? See how lovely that is? Thank you, camera. On. Now, if you wanted to just use, where's that little piece, this piece here. If you just wanted to use this, we can. So we get our piece of paper, pop that on, open out the ends, a different colour. See, this is more of a goldy colour in there. And what we're going to do, so just lay them on, fold that over, so we've made a little sandwich, bring that over and heat. Remember, we're not pressing down, we're not ironing in any way. You know, the iron is here on its own. I'm not pressing it or making it do anything it doesn't want to do. It is on very hot. I'll just let that cool down for a moment. Do you see that? It's so fine, it's so pretty. Bring it over here, Anita. It's very fine, very pretty. And then if we wanted to, we can use a stamp. To add some extra dimension to it. Do you see that? I mean, that is so pretty. Okay. So that's all I'm going to show you today. This is still very, very wet. Remember, we did this right at the very beginning. You could add this onto there if we wanted to. Would help if you can see it, of course. Keep forgetting that's the opposite way. So if we wanted to, we could add that onto there. which gives it even more. You know, this glue will re-stick if I wanted it to. So thank you for watching. I know some of you have been in and out. I do apologise at the very beginning where the internet dropped out. That's because it had connected to the wrong one. And I look forward to seeing you again. Like I said, if you want to come and play, it's next Wednesday. We work from 10 till 4. I don't supply lunch, but I do supply some cakes. They're all homemade, and other refreshments too. Most of the materials are here. You can either use my materials for a small charge, or you can BRINKSTUDIO.co and look for experimental